Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to our program. I'd like to start off by again giving my condolences to the Imam of our time. We are now on the third day of the month of Muharram, the month in which Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companions and his family were brutally massacred in the lands of Karbala. On our last program, we talked about the story of Muslim ibn Aqil. We talked about how Muslim ibn Aqil was betrayed by the people of Kufa. Inshallah, in today's program, we're going to be talking about the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil, Muhammad and Ibrahim. And inshallah, we'll talk about their story and we'll talk about the type of people that they were only the age of, I believe, 8 and 10 years old. They were young children. And inshallah, we're going to be talking about that later on. I'd like to, but first, let's introduce our guest, brother Ali Raza. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Azamallahu ajurana wa ajurakum bi muhabba Abi Abdullah Hussein. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum ya Imam Zamana alayhi salam. Assalamu alaikum, dear brother Syed Muhammad and others. I would like to first of all, give my deepest condolences to you and to our viewers, and I would like to also, especially to our Imam of our time, Imam Zamana alayhi salam, and I hope and I pray for that Allah makes us familiar with Ulume Quran and Mu'arifati Ahlul Bayt, so that our lives in both worlds are successful, inshallah.
Inshallah. Brother Ali Reza, before we get into, of course, the story, we can go over the story of Muslim ibn Aqil and the story of the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. I just wanted to know, how is your Muharram going? Do you feel like you've been able to get closer to Imam Hussein alayhi salam during this time? As we know, this Muharram is very different. Since now we're not going to the masjids, of course, we have people are at home right now.
Alhamdulillah, it was good because I was actually I planned to memorize Surah Fajr because it's also called Surah Imam Hussein, and so I was just planning, and also what I did, I felt that I got closer to Imam Hussein because
Alhamdulillah.
it was kind of like I talked to her, because of Muharram and and there's like many majalises going on, like a lot, and it was good. It was good, alhamdulillah.
That's great. That's good to hear, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all the tawfiq to try and get closer to Imam Hussein alayhi salam during this time. Of course, it is most people are at home right now. We're unable to go to the masjid, but there's still many different opportunities that we can use this time to our advantage, and inshallah, we can get a closer relationship with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Like I mentioned today, we're going to be talking about the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil, Muhammad and Ibrahim. But before we get into that, Brother Ali Reza, could you give us a summary of the story of Muslim ibn Aqil?
Yes. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So first of all, our first Imam Hussein left Medina on 28th of Rajab. He arrived in Makkah beginning on 3rd. He was unable to perform his Hajj as Yazid sent his men in the form of Haji and to kill him, and he stayed. Instead, he did Umrah and he stayed in Makkah from Shaban, Muharram, Al Mubarak, Shawwal, and Zulqa'dah, the beginning of Zul. He lived in Mecca to go to Kufa on 8th Zilhajj. And this is why Muslim ibn Aqil and his companions, his supporters, gathered to comfort Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, the governor of Kufa. So it was like a 800 miles journey, and there were some stops, and there, Islam, you know, uh, there were, since there were like many, and like dispatched his cousin Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil as a Safir or ambassador, and to get the complete picture of what is going on in Kufa. How are the people? I think this,
Yeah, he wanted him
there
to.
were,
Yeah,
yes, and because the people of Kufa had written a large number of letters to our dearest Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Kufa. 1,000 people allegiance to Hazrat ibn Aqil. So, and but what happened that uh, Yazid and his supplies to uh you know the, to the people of Kufa, and like he sent his spies. No, he sent his spies, and his spies like told Yazid about the situation of Kufa, like how the people are doing baits of Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, and things like this. And then Yazid was very annoyed and very disturbed. So what he did, he sent Ibn Ziyad to Kufa instead of the Nu'man ibn Bashir, the governor at first. But then he changed Ibn Ziyad. So he Ziyad basically in Imam Hussein's dress. He knew that the people were waiting for Imam Hussein already. So what he did, he in Imam Hussein's clothing so he wouldn't be prevented to enter Kufa. And so further, Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil's, his pledged allegiance, companions, who pledged allegiance to him, got slowly reduced. I mean, further, further reduced to 300, then 30, and then finished his prayer in the mosque of Kufa. The 10 supporters were with him, and when he came out of the mosque, they slowly vanished from behind him, leaving him alone. And then Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil had no shelter, no home, thing to live in, and he sat um uh, outside the house of the lady Toha. The son of the lady Toha was a teacher. He was very he was dishonest. He 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 drank alcohol and these things. He was not a good person. He was disappointed. And then Hazrat Muslim Wakil was also arrested because of that, because he was outside, fighting the enemies of the men of Ziyad. And 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 when Ibn Ziyad finally Muslim Ibn Akil was captured by so then you know he was he was in the palace. He asked for water. When he asked for water, you blood dropped in the water, and like he did this 3 times, and the water did not, he couldn't quench his thirst, and he he, he understood that he had to go get nurtured, thirst. So uh, also Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil said, told Umar Saad, he said, we have some relation with you. I have a will. I have 700 the second thing Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil said, give me burial. And the third thing, send some messenger to stop Imam Hussein from coming to Kufa, as the people have already betrayed me and left me alone. And then they Ibn just took Hazrat Muslim to the roof of Darul Amara, and uh, head and body, and the soldiers pushed one of the pushed him down the roof.
Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.
In
That was the story of
yes,
Muslim ibn Aqil, how he became a martyr. So that was a summary, like I mentioned, about what happened to Muslim ibn Aqil. And of course, there's many different things. The betrayal of the Kufans, how they had told Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they had sent thousands of letters. I read somewhere that it was about 12,000 that they just kept sending them. So many letters to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, saying that they would give their allegiance, saying that they would fight for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and they would follow his path. And then Muslim ibn Aqil came. And as soon as Yazid ibn Ziyad, as soon as he was able to scare the people, they were all gone. So all of the people, he once had, 12,000 people. He once had, 20,000 people. I think, there's different numbers. Um, I think one of the main ones that there's 30,000. So let's say 30,000 people. So he had so many people, and then it became, 30, it became 10, it became 0. And pretty soon there was no one with him. So one of the main things you see from the story of Muslim ibn Aqil, and the same thing you see with the other stories of Karbala, is how we have to be, we have to be preparing for the day when we leave this world. And we shouldn't fear death. Is you see with the people against Muslim ibn Aqil, why did they leave him? Brother Ali Raza, can you tell us why did the people of Kufa, why did they betray Muslim ibn Aqil?
they betrayed Muslim ibn Aqil because the people were frightened of Ibn Ziyad's punishment he would give the people, and the people were also greedy. Either they were they went to Ibn Ziyad by greed, because they had greed in their heart, money, and
Yeah, Ibn
they
Ziyad, of course, he had
and
offered them. Yes, of course, like you mentioned, it was a combination of both of them. At one side, he said that anyone who supports Muslim Aqil, anyone who's even with him, they will automatically be beheaded. So they had that fear, like I mentioned, the fear of death, the fear that, oh, what's going to happen to my family? What's going to happen to my property? What's going to happen to everything? And of course, the other side was about the reason even Ibn Ziyad was there, about how Yazid had given them a lot of money. And another reason was because of the tactics, the dirty tactics that the Umayyads used at the time. They were different tactics that they used. One of them was, all the people, they were able to tell them different things. They were able to send their spies around the large crowds of people, and they were able to tell them, oh, Yazid, I heard Yazid is sending an army, and, they send different things that, oh, anyone who helps Muslim ibn Aqil will be tortured, they're all going to come, it doesn't matter, if you're with him or not, he's going to kill everyone. And they told these different things that were able to scare the people enough. So that's one of the main things that we have to learn, that we want the belief that we have, that the support that we have for the Quran, the Ahlul Bayt, we want it to be pure. We want it to be 100%, true. We don't want it to be that shaky type of belief that the Kufans had, that as soon as, someone has a huge army, as soon as they become afraid, that's when they back away. That's when they the people who didn't help Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein alayhi salam used to have thousands of followers, thousands of people who were with him. But at the end of the day, when he needed help, when he was, leaving, and he went to so many companions and he asked them for help, they were scared. They didn't know, because Imam Hussein alayhi salam knew that where he was going to lead to nothing. He was sacrificing his life. And that's what had been, prophesized. by Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, and all those people who were there now, they weren't willing to do it because of course, fear. They didn't know what was going to happen to their families. They, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. So we don't want to be like those people. And we look at our example, that what if the 12th Imam, we don't know when the 12th Imam is going to come, but what if the 12th Imam was to come next year? What if he was to come, sometime in our lifetime? It's easy for someone to say that, oh, when you're talking about Muharram, you say, oh, if I was at the time Imam Hussein alayhi salam, I would have helped. It's easy to say that, but it's another thing to actually do it. And we look, who's the example of our time? The example of our time is our 12th Imam, may Allah hasten his appearance. So we have to keep constantly preparing, so that we're able to train ourselves, so that when our 12th Imam, inshallah, comes, we're able to give our lives just like that. We're able to fight for him without, any questions asked. And that's the type of belief that we need to have. Okay, so that was the summary of the story of Muslim ibn Aqil. Now, inshallah, we're going to be talking about the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. We're going to be talking about Muhammad and Ibrahim, who were, the children of Muslim ibn Aqil. May Allah be pleased with him. And they were very young. They were at the age of 8 and 10 years old. Now, Brother Ali Raza, can you tell us, or actually I'm going to tell a little bit about the story of Muhammad and Ibrahim. So Muhammad and Ibrahim, they had accompanied when Muslim ibn Aqil had departed for the city of Kufa. He brought along his two sons. Muhammad and Ibrahim. Now, after the time when Muslim ibn Aqil had become a martyr, after Muslim ibn Aqil had become a martyr, Ibn Ziyad had ordered that the two Muslim ibn Aqil's two sons were to also be arrested and put into prison. Now, there's different things, but it said that when they were put into prison, they were in prison for about a year. So we're talking about this span that, look at the things that they went through, that right after their father had just become martyred, they were put into prison. And like I mentioned, we're talking about young children. We're talking about the ages of 8 and 10. Brother Ali Reza, can you tell us a little bit about the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil?
The lessons of from the sons of Muslim Aqil. Is that what you asked?
Yeah. Actually, I think never mind. Let me just continue with the story first, and I think we should do that at the end.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I mentioned, Muhammad and Ibrahim, the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil, after Muslim ibn Aqil became a martyr, they were arrested and they were put into prison. And they were put into prison for, they say they were in prison for a whole year. And in this time, they were barely given any food. They were barely given any water. And, like I mentioned, these are, 8 and 10 years old. And look at the situation that they were put in. On the 20th of Dhul Hijjah, 60 Hijri, a man came to them to give them their meals. There he saw them reading their prayers. The man was surprised by seeing this, that here are these, young kids that they weren't that, and they were put in this situation. They were put in prison. And, the way that they were always still reading their namaz, which of course is the way that they were brought up by Muslim ibn Aqil. So the man was surprised by this, and then he asked those kids, he said, who are you? And they told him that they were the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil and the grandsons of Imam Ali alayhi salam. When the man heard this, he was shocked and immediately set them free. The man was, of course, a lover of the Ahlul Bayt, so when he found out that these were the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil, he became very sad, and he started to, he asked them for forgiveness, and, the man he let them go. Oh, sorry, I think I dropped something. Now, so here we are. Like I mentioned, let's stop right here. So where are we right now? We're at the point where Muslim ibn Aqil, the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil, they were put in prison for about a year. We're put in that situation. And they're in a situation where they're barely given any food. They're barely given any water. And what are they doing in that time? They were reading their namaz. They were praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were, constantly, they had belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that what He willed would happen. That the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of plans. Brother Ali Reza, can you tell us about the akhlaq of the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil?
Yes. So the akhlaq of the Muslim was very respectful to their elders and their enemies and friends alike. They had strong faith. They had tawakkul in Allah Ta'ala in their times of tragedy, and also they were very sabir, patient, and the older brother also like tried to tell his little brother to like remain patient and remain to always he always used to you know tell him and give his little brother confidence to stay patient and things like this. Also, they were very noble and pious. They had strong tawheed. Uh, they did not beg their enemies, or they did not beg their enemies to spare their lives. Or and also before
Yeah, even in
Shahada,
that situation, yes. Yeah, I was just going to say, even in that situation,
yes.
you
So
see, even they,
before yeah
yes. No, continue.
yeah uh, yes before Shahada, they asked their killer to let them pray um after two rakat namaz, to offer two rakat namaz.
Yeah, so, like we were mentioning, about Muhammad and Ibrahim, that even in that situation, that bad situation that they were in, that, where they still had respect. They still stuck to their Islamic values. And there's many different things that we can learn from this, of course. But just look at that we're not talking about, regular people in this situation. We're not talking about, adults. We're talking about children in this situation, 8 and 10 years old. There's not that many people at all who would, act the way they acted in that situation. To stick to their Islamic, to still be able to practice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's laws, to still be able to have respect and still, have patience in that situation, which is something we don't see. And you compare that to kids today. Brother Ali Reza, how would you compare that to kids today? Like, how would you
So
compare? Yes.
yes, so so Muslim Ibn Aqil's songs against the normal kids in today's world, see that they, we can see they not close to Allah, materialistic. Like they like video games. They like to play um, the MP3 player and the Xbox and these type of things, and they waste their time. They don't. They're they give less importance to religion. They don't. They're shunned in hard work, and they are disobedient to parents and elders. They're lazy. They don't know the purpose, the actual purpose. Why are we sent um, in this world by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala? And they have lack of spirituality, and yeah.
Yeah, that's what we see in our world today, in our current world today. And of course, when you look at it, really, you look at the two types of situations. That look at the situation they were in, how they were, their father had just been everything that happened to them, and the way that they were still able to keep to their Islamic values. They were still able to have patience, and they were still able to have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then look how the situation today, where somebody will say something bad to someone else, and all of a sudden, you'll lose everything. You won't remember, and you'll start fighting back with him, and little things like that. So even you look at our example, that our thing is way less than that. We can't compare it to that, what they went through. So why do we talk about this every year? The main thing to talk about this is that we can learn from this situation, that we can see what they did in that situation. We can learn from their example, that even in the worst of situations, like we see with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that even at that stage when he was surrounded by, the cruel army of Yazid, he was surrounded by these, these murderers and these tyrants. How did he react? Up until the final moment of his life, he was begging them to not do them. Why was he doing that? He was doing it because he still wanted to save them. Even after everything that they had done to him, he had still wanted to save them. He had warned them. He said, "Don't kill me." He told them what would happen if they did that. So we look at that example, that today in the society that we live in, how much easier it is, that there's little things here and there. I have the example that, I went to the park once to play basketball at the park. Of course, there's a lot of different kids at the park. And of course, there's a lot of, not very nice kids at the park as well, unfortunately. And, they always say a lot of mean stuff. They always, try to put you down. They try to do this and that. But even in that situation, that's like the current version today that you see. That's the kind of a lighter version that you see today. That even a situation like that, where, over a game of basketball, where someone is saying something mean to you, and instead of responding to them, instead of saying, oh, instead of responding exactly the way they're talking to you, and you're, with rude and just saying, bad words and this and that, the best way to respond is to, just keep on to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us, just to have patience, and follow the examples of, you see, Muhammad and Ibrahim. That is basically, that's the current version today. That we realize that we didn't go through even close to what they had went through. So it's so much easier for us to try and practice, everything we have learned. It's so much easier to try and practice our, all the Islamic teachings and the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. So, inshallah, if we're able to do that, we're able to learn from the examples of, Muhammad and Ibrahim, and we're able to see how they reacted in that situation, what they did. We're talking about children who had been left alone in the city of Kufa by themselves, the place where their father had been martyred. They were thrown in prison by, the cruel Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, may Allah's curse be upon him. And they spent over a year there. Like I mentioned, they barely had any food. They barely had any water. But what were they still doing? Despite all of that, despite everything that they had went through, they still had faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They still kept, onto the teachings of Islam. They still kept on to their, their values. And that is the biggest thing we see from them. That's the biggest lesson we can learn. That even through that extreme situation, such a horrible situation we see, how they acted. So inshallah, we're able to take that and we're able to use it in our daily lives. So that not only with the big things that happen, with the small things, that the little things happen, that we can use that example and we can think to ourselves, those were the children 8 and 10 years old, very young children, and look what they went through. And the things we go through is nothing to be compared. It's not even close. So that's one of the main reasons. Brother Ali Reza, why do you think it's important for us to talk about this every year? It's Well, I'm not sure. Well, that's not working. But um, like I mentioned,
Uh,
sorry.
brother, I couldn't hear you correctly. What did you say?
Oh, sorry. I was just asking, Brother Ali Reza, what are why do you think it's so important for us to talk about this story every single year?
Um, uh, did you say that lessons from Karbala?
No,
Karbala?
I was just
I
asking,
couldn't hear you
the
correctly.
story of Muhammad and Ibrahim. I
Uh,
just wanted to ask you, why do you think it's so important for us to discuss this every single year? Well, I think it's a sound problem. It's fine. Forget it. You don't have to answer it. Um,
yes,
oh, did you get the question?
yes. It is. It is important because we have because
Yes. Well, it's obviously a little delay, so it's fine. You don't have to answer that question. It's fine. Um, the basic summary of it was, every single year we constantly talk about this and we constantly remind ourselves so that, inshallah, we're able to improve ourselves and inshallah, we're able to use these examples and we're able to use it in our daily lives. And like I mentioned, not just the big things, not just the huge things that come up, but the very small things that even when of course, the example of Karbala, even when I have just a glass of water, even when I have just a little water left, you think of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and you think of the struggle that he went through. Even if you have a little food left in your plate, you have a little bit, and you have to finish that. You're thinking, oh, you're full, but you have to finish it. Why? You have to finish it because Imam Hussein alayhi salam didn't have that. He didn't have barely had food. He didn't have water in that situation. So these are the things, and of course, I feel that every single year you learn something new. There's different parts of the story that there's different versions of the story that every single year you hear something new, you learn something new. So, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this time, the time of Muharram, as a way to refresh ourselves. Yes, Brother Ali Reza? Okay, so like we were mentioning, we were talking, we just mentioned some of the main lessons that we can learn from the story of Muhammad and
yes.
Ibrahim,
So
who were the sons.
I was saying that we
Yes, continue. It's a very confusing format, brothers and sisters. Maybe next time we can use the phone call.
yes.
Instead, it'll
So
be a
I was
little.
saying that uh, the lessons, the you know uh, lessons we learn from Karbala is that we see the these people of Karbala, the 72 companions of Hussein alayhi salam and his family and you know you know patience. We see you know trust in Allah, and we see a lot of uh, you know see a lot of doing we see them not complaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see them you know seeing patience, seeing
Yeah, and we also see from all ages. We see that from Ali Asghar, who was 6 months old, 6 months old, all the way up to all the different shaheeds, up until the elderly men. We see all the different people that it really doesn't matter what age you are. Of course, Muhammad and Ibrahim. only 8 and 10 years old. So that's also one of the main lessons we can learn, is that you can't really use age as an excuse. That whether you live, 90 years, or you live 25 years, or you live, 15 years, all of that time can be used, in a different way. That someone who lives 90 years, you couldn't get close to have the impact of, Muhammad and Ibrahim, who were, such they were so, such young children. So you look at that example, that's what we should do. We shouldn't be based off of, age. We shouldn't give ourselves that excuse that, oh, some people you can look at, you can say, oh, my grandfather lived to, I don't know, 75 years old. So if I at least give half of that, let's say I have, 35 years. You can't think like that. You have to think about right now and this current moment in time and what you're doing. Now, of course, is the month of Muharram. So every little thing that we can do, we should try to do it as soon as possible. The worst thing that you can do, the greatest curse is saying tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. Tomorrow is Shaitan's excuse for you to never do something. If you want to clean the car, if you want to, you want to pick something up, do it today, because tomorrow isn't assured. And we see that with, another one of the main lessons of Karbala is how Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companions, they knew that they were going to be martyred. They knew that they were going to become shaheed. They knew they were become massacred. They knew that, the women and children, they knew that they were going to be chained. But why did they do it? They did it to spread the message of Islam, to make the message of Islam more clear, to, give everyone the example of how far we have to go to stay on the right path. That it's not just about, the easy way. That's what they knew. They knew that they were going to die. And that's how they made, the most of their time. So same thing with us. So we don't know when we're going to die. I don't know if I'm going to die, tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to die 100 years from now. We don't know that. So right now is the biggest moment that you have, that any, like I said, big or small, that you can do. Make sure to do it. And, we learn throughout history, we learn, like I mentioned, that age doesn't matter. From, 8 years old, from 6 months to 90 years old. And even in, centers, even in like Islamic centers, the younger people should also try to get involved. Whatever they can do, we should try to learn the most in the masjid, as much as you can. So those were the lessons that we learned from Muhammad and Ibrahim, the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. Those were, we learned some of the main things. Today's program, we learned how belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even in, the worst situations, we learned to have patience. We learned to stick to our values no matter what, stick to the teachings of Islam. So inshallah, now we're going to be, inshallah, we're going to be continuing to tell the story of, we're going to tell the story of the sons of Muhammad and Ibrahim. So on the 20th of Dhul Hijjah, 60 Hijri, a man came to them to give their meals. There he saw them reading their prayers. And like I mentioned, this man was a follower and a lover of the Ahlul Bayt. And when he asked them, he asked them who they were. And when he found out that they were the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil, the man became so sad, and he asked them, for forgiveness. And, when the man, he then, he immediately set them free. After they got outside, the first thought that came to their minds was to inform Imam Hussein alayhi salam not to come to Kufa. However, everywhere they looked, there were soldiers blocking the roads and gates. And they were thinking, how could they possibly get out of the city of Kufa? Um, at daybreak, they went near the river, and there was a woman. She asked them who they were. They said, "We are orphans." They told her not to tell anyone. After talking with them a while, she realized who they were. She told them she will provide them food and shelter. She said her husband is not here now, but when he comes, you must leave, because if he finds out who you are, he will kill you. The boys agreed and went with the woman. They went to sleep. Um, that night, Muhammad woke up crying. Ibrahim asked his brother why he was crying. He said, "I saw my father in my dream." "Be patient," Ibrahim told him. "I had a dream too with my father in it. He was calling us to come to him." Then a short while later, the woman's husband came home and saw the children and knew who they were. The wife tried to stop him, but to no avail. The man said that Ibn Ziyad would give a big reward to whomever gives him the heads of the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. I grabbed them, and the man grabbed them and tied them with the ropes to the pillar. They stayed tied up the entire night. The next morning, the man took them to the river bank. "Are you going to kill us?" said one of the boys. "Yes," the man said. The boys prayed, "Ya Allah, give our mother courage when she hears of our death, and judge between us and our killers." The man lifted his sword and killed the two sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curse the killers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send the curses upon all the evil people, the man who killed the two sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. And right after that happened, when the man killed the two sons of Muslim ibn Aqil, he, like I mentioned, he wanted a big reward because what happened? He got trapped in the dunya. He was working for, Ibn Ziyad, and Ibn Ziyad, he told everyone, he said, whoever brings me the two children of Muslim ibn Aqil, I'll give them a big reward. So that's what the guy had in his mind. Shaitan was able to trick him, and he was able to fall into that trap. So when the man brought over the heads of Muhammad and Ibrahim, he brought them to the man. He put them on a platter. He brought them to Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad was furious, and he said, "Why'd you do that? I didn't tell you to bring them dead. I wanted them alive." And the man said, the man was like shocked. He's like, "Oh, you just said to bring them." And Ibn Ziyad ordered that the man be killed, and they kill him in the exact same spot where they killed the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. So, of course, the two young boys, their prayers were answered, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right away got their revenge upon the evil and cruel man. Well, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to learn more about the events of Karbala. Inshallah, learn more about try to remind ourselves the different lessons, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed us on this earth to do, and inshallah learn more from these stories so that we're able to remind ourselves, and every single time we're able to improve. Whenever we look at the examples of the people Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put on this earth as examples, the people that we can look at, the best of people. Well, that's all the time we have left for today. Thank you for Brother Ali Raza for participating for being in our program. Now we're going to do Allahumma kulli walika for the safety and protection of our 12th Imam, and inshallah we are all helpers of our 12th Imam. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala bai في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa jafar. Once again, Brother Ali Raza, thank you for joining us on today's program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. خدا حافظ.